My name is Joseph Sharp. I am from Mobile, Alabama, and I'm studying economics and psychology with a minor in advertising and public relations. And I'm a senior, class of 2026, which is crazy.
Okay, what are you passionate about? Can be multiple things, but what did you discover in college? How have you focused on it? How have you grown in it? How's it shaped you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think obviously the first thing I would say is I'm very passionate about hospitality. Um, and that is something that I really did not find out or figure out about myself until I got to college. And I think it really stems from this feeling of wanting to make others feel included and make others feel like they have a space where they are welcome, and where they are known. So kind of when I got to UNC, there were a lot of different areas that I felt I wanted to practice that. And obviously one of them was through the study center. I got plugged in with the hospitality team very quickly in my freshman year, which I was so happy about. Like some of the students that have gone before me, like Maddie Schober and Will Rutledge, did such a good job of just showing me what hospitality at the study center looks like. And a lot of times that revolves around food, which is obviously another one of my passions. But I think kind of the way that hospitality just shows up in everyday life a lot of times is around just sharing a meal together. And so I've done a lot at the study center through that, being a part of the hospitality team, and then being a co-leader with Elizabeth Wiley, which has been so much fun, just getting to plan events and getting to plan pop-up things for students where we say, hey, we're going to be making breakfast tacos, or we're going to be making pancakes this time. Show up, bring a friend, just come and hang. And I think another great thing about the hospitality events are they're great opportunities to invite people to the study center who might not normally stumble upon the study center or hear about it. So I really do just love kind of the way I've gotten to volunteer and live out that passion through the study center. But I think also it got to a point, maybe it's definitely when I moved into a house sophomore year, where I was like, it's great to do it through the study center, but what are ways that I can practice hospitality every day? Or maybe not every day, but in other areas of my life, and just through the house that I live in. So I lived at Miss D's my sophomore year, and that I feel like is where it really kind of started, of inviting people over to my space and preparing a space for people to share a real meal together. And I would say that obviously was helped by the fact that I got one of those Blackstone griddles that for the house, which totally just leveled up the possibilities. So sophomore year, I definitely started to kind of use my house and use that time as a way to practice my passion of hospitality. So I think kind of as the years have gone by and I've lived in the house for the past 3 years, that has definitely been one of my favorite parts about college, especially not only just hosting events for our friends and hosting events for the community, tailgates and just random quesadilla dinners or things like that, but also getting to invite the guys that I disciple through Young Life, high school guys and guys that I know through my church, to be hey, come over, we'll play video games or watch football, watch basketball, and I'll make dinner and we'll just hang. I think that has definitely been just a part of my college career that I never would have expected, and B is such a huge part of my life now, that it's almost like, how did like this, how did I exist before this? Like how did I like not think about this before? But I would say it's definitely something I've developed over time in college. And I will also say that I owe a lot of it to, and just this heart for hospitality, I owe a lot to my mom and my grandmother, who are just two great examples of what it looks like to welcome people into a space and make people feel known and loved in a way that just not only exemplifies Christ, but is just such a great way to build community and to love on people. So yeah, hospitality for sure is something that I've grown to love and nurture. Yeah.
Great answer. So you talked a lot about friendships and like ministry and community. How did you meet your best friends? And what do those friendships look like? Like what are the rhythms and the habits, and how are you intentional about them?
Yeah. So I would say that my closest friends at UNC are the guys that I live with. And I met a majority of those guys through the college life freshman year Bible study that Parker Mendenhall led. And I remember getting to college. I will say it's funny because I met a few of the guys that I live with now and that were in that Bible study at Way Camp. And we like said hi, or like maybe we were in the same, like I know Nathan Townsend and I were in the same cabin, and it was like leaving Way Camp, I was like, great, I've met some cool guys, like we'll see if we cross paths again. And then, fast forward, we're in freshman year Bible study, fast forward a couple more months and it's like, hey, we have this house available to us, like, do we want to live there? And that was Miss D's, and then the rest is history. But I would say that freshman year Bible study was so important just for us getting close, like hanging out together. But I think additionally, it was just such a space where like we were vulnerable. And I feel like that was one of the things that we really, that like allowed us to become so close so quickly, was just how much we practiced that and how much that was like nurtured in the group. And I will say that kind of the difference between my friendships in high school and my friendships in college very much is that vulnerability aspect. And I think it like makes all the difference. So like now, like I said today, like all those guys that I live with, our friendships look a lot just like spending the in-between time with each other. Don't get me wrong, we do a ton of like fun things together as a house, whether that be spring break trips or, random weekend hangouts, playing pickleball. But I feel like the best, some of the funniest, most fun times with those friends have been, whenever we're like hanging out at night, like we're all like getting ready to go to bed, whatever. And then you end up like walking to a friend's room and like talking to them for another like hour and a half. Or just not even talking, but just like messing around and like joking around, saying nothing of substance, but just having fun. And so I'd say that's one way that like I feel like my friendships look a lot nowadays. But I think the other thing is also not forgetting to be intentional, not forgetting to be like vulnerable outside of like that Bible study that we had freshman year. But keeping that up to maintain those friendships, especially the intentional aspect of really checking in on your friends, really spending time with them, intentional time, not just time that you have fun and not just time that you joke around, but time where you really talk about the things that matter to them and matter to you. So yeah, I would say that definitely that's one of the ways that I found my friends at UNC and how we've kind of kept that up and nurtured that over the past few years.
So I also want to talk about like other habits, like faith habits, like how you've been intentional about those and how they've shaped your time. And then also just like other, just like sweet habits, whether like health and quality of life.
Yeah. I will say, so when I think about like faith habits in my like routine, I always say that and I'm very quick to like kind of tell, especially my young life guys, this, of that my like relationship with the Lord and how I spend time with the Lord, I feel like is not always like the way that we're almost like told to or like shown to. I remember having a conversation. I think it was either freshman or sophomore year. I had a conversation with Madison Perry about this, of just like, and he's asking like, how much are you reading your Bible, or how much are you spending time in the Word with God? And I was like, not as much as I should be. And I think that kind of sparked this conversation of, we all have these images of like what it should look like to spend time with the Lord, of like, oh, I need to be reading the Bible for 30 minutes or an hour a day, every single day, in order for that to be like a real relationship with the Lord. But after that conversation with Madison, it really was just like, hey, that's what works for some people, or, maybe that works for some people, but like, I think the way that I spend time with the Lord and the way I really experience the Lord is a lot through other people, and a lot through spending time, like very intentional, real time with other people. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm still like reading my Bible, and I think it's super important to be in the Word, obviously. But I think that a lot of times the way the Lord like speaks to me is through the mouths of other people, and through just the conversations that I've had where I'm like, man, like I've never thought about it that way, or like, maybe I am thinking about this differently, or maybe I'm thinking about this in the wrong way. I think also, not only does like the Lord speak to me through my friends, but he also just like, I feel like my friends are just such great examples of like the Lord's grace and kindness and love. And I think that I see that a lot through just like the meals that I've shared with friends at Sutton's, or, the conversations we've had whether we're, in the car driving, I think one of the best memories, I'd say it's not the best memory, but I just remember a conversation that I had with my roommate William Cook, driving back from the mountains, and it was right before we started our senior year, and we were just kind of talking about like the expectations we had for the year, not only academically and vocationally, but also just like as Christians, and in our faith journeys. And I just remember that being like a huge, just like moment from the Lord of getting to talk about things that like really meant a lot to us, and like kind of put us on a great trajectory for senior year. So I think like I see the Lord move a lot, and I think I've also seen the Lord just kind of show up a lot in my life through the people he's placed in my life. Whether that be at the study center, or the guys I live with, or in Young Life, or in church community at Christ Central. I feel like the people he's placed and the conversations I've had, I'll leave conversations being like, man, that was like, nothing but a conversation with the Lord, where he just showed up and kind of showed me things, or said, this person might have said things that I was like, man, they didn't know that I needed to hear that. But I think that's kind of become my routine, is like making sure I'm spending time with people, intentional time with people. I think also like, you can tell, like I can tell when I'm having a bad week, or like when I'm just like, man, like what's going on? Like I just feel like in the dumps. It's like, man, like I haven't been around enough people this week. Like I haven't like, oh, I need to go get lunch with this person that I've been talking to. Like it's funny just the way that like, you go grab lunch with someone, you're like, man, that just made my week. It just made my day home so much better. So I think that's something that I've also kind of learned in my time through college, is just how much the people around me and the conversations I have just kind of really are such a big part of my faith, which I thought was something that, I wouldn't, like I said, I used to think like, oh, I need to be talking, I need to be praying and reading my Bible in the morning, every single day, in order for that to, like, for the Lord to speak to me, or for the Lord to talk to me. So yeah.
like academics and like, because you got to travel, study food, right? Well, kind of. Did you get to do the research where you?
Oh, I actually didn't. No.
Okay.
It's okay.
What have you done?
Yeah.
You've done some research.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that, like, because some of those opportunities I would never know
Yeah.
existed, like food and like
Yeah.
the intersection of food and academics. I'm like, I don't know anything about, or like that sort of thing. Like, find
Yeah.
something you're passionate about, and then
Yeah.
like, wait, I can use my academics to study that. So like,
Yeah.
or even just like Joe travels and eats. Like, those sort of, like,
Yeah.
tell me about that.
Yeah, I would say that definitely a large part of my time at UNC, I mean, first of all, like a whole semester of it was devoted to studying abroad. But I've also just spent so much time, you know, during random weekends here and there. Like I've had just the incredible opportunity to travel a lot internationally while I've been at UNC. And I think that's also played a large part in my, not only my college career, but just like what I've learned about myself as a person, and how much like the travel I've done has impacted me. Because yeah, like you said, I got to spend a study abroad in London, and I got to spend a semester abroad in London, and loved just every minute of it, of living in a city that is so global and so like just plays such an important role historically in the world, but also just where it's like heading in the future is so interesting as well. And I think what makes London such a cool place is just how much of an intersection of different cultures and different ethnicities it is. And I think I got to experience that a lot through its food and its food scene. And part of my time spent in London was working at a bar and hostel company, which was so cool. And at first I was like, this isn't exactly what I wanted. Like, I was hoping to do something else. And then I got to the internship and I was like, wait, this is awesome, because like I'm getting to work for a company, like, in part of my time there was spent like working the front desk, like welcoming in travelers who are like tired and who are like, you know, they've never been to London before, and they're like coming to this city that's new, that's different, and you get to be like a familiar face that's like, hey, welcome, you know, like, let me help you out. Like, if there's anything you need, you know, I'm happy to show you around. And so, so that was really cool. And I think, yeah, like you said, like, just getting to like see the way that like food impacts culture, and vice versa is so cool. Like I said earlier, like one of my huge passions is food and just the power of a meal. And I think I have experienced that on both sides of being someone who has received, you know, meals from people, and also someone who you know, gives meals to people. And I think like not only does food have just a way of like breaking down barriers and you know, inspiring connection, but it just also is like such a reflection of what people value and who people are. I know like it's like kind of a stereotype that like every 20-something-year-old guy is like obsessed with Anthony Bourdain. But I'm one of those guys, just because of like his like ability to, you know, use food as a way to like see people, and get to know people. And I think that's like how I aspire to view food, and like what I am trying to do a lot through my travels. And I've you know, read a ton of books, and there's a lot of great faculty on UNC's campus who are doing research about this, especially when it comes to like Southern foodways, which is such an interesting like topic in general. But I think as someone who's from Alabama and who's someone who like, you know, has grown up with, you know, like eating large meals with, you know, my family is like such an important part of like who we are, and how we like experience not only like holidays and you know, celebrations, but also like it was a normal thing growing up that like, oh, like every Monday night we went to like my grandmother's house and we would just like have a meal. So I think like there's definitely a lot of ways to that I didn't know before I came to UNC of like how food can be studied and how like it's not just this thing. Excuse me. Like food is not just this thing that's to be enjoyed and to like be eaten, but it's also something that just serves as like a bridge to like cultures and humans in a way that a lot of other things like don't. And in a way, like it's an art, and a lot of people express a lot of feelings through the way like they share food and the way that they cook. So yeah, and so I've gotten to talk with a lot of faculty who do research in the like southern. I'm trying to think. It's the food studies like major minor. I want to say, but a lot of the professors are like either like American history professors that like focus on food and food studies. So and there's some great like books that they've written, and so it's fun getting to have those conversations with them and getting to learn from them. Yeah.
Kind of on that vein, similarly, it's like, tell me about either a professor or a mentor, like it can be academic, it can be faith related, but just like some mentor that has like shaped your time or it can be a couple. But
Yeah.
how did you find them? How did they find you? What does that
Yeah.
look like?
When I think about like faculty mentors at UNC, I would say that like there's not really one big one that comes to mind, but instead like a couple different ones that have one from each of my like disciplines that I study that have just through being kind and through being like who they are, like have inspired me and encouraged me along my way. One of them was she's actually retired from UNC now, which is so sad. But her name was Dr. Rita Balaban. Was an economics professor, and she taught my Econ 101 class my fall semester of my freshman year. So one of the very first classes I took at UNC, it was a smaller class because it was an honors section, which I didn't really understand how much of a blessing it was to be in that class. But she taught that class, and I got to know her really well. She was a huge sports fan, so we would talk football and basketball all the time, just kind of before class started. But she kind of inspired me, I guess, in my like economics journey of, because she taught the like economy of sports class, and I was like, wait, this is like kind of cool that like economics and the study of economics like has the ability to be about something other than just like, you know, stocks and bonds and treasury yields and whatnot. And so she really encouraged me. And I think one of the biggest things also was that I applied to be a ULA for her the semester after I took her class. So I was still a freshman, and I think she like really took a chance on me of like allowing me to be a ULA for her 101 class the next semester. You know, a class that like I literally just took, and so I think in a lot of ways like that was super important for me of her showing me that like she trusted me with this role, and she trusted in my abilities as well. Was like such a huge way that she impacted me and encouraged me, and I think definitely one of the reasons why I'm an econ student today. But I'll say also in the psychology department, I have gotten to know one of the professors, Dr. Griffin, Dr. Desiree Griffin, and she is actually from Mobile, Alabama as well, where I'm from. And I like brought that up like one of the first weeks of class. It was my sophomore year that I took her, like I first took her for class, and we just like from then it was like such a like just great, like she was such a great professor and just so kind, and was always so helpful. And I think it was part of that having that Alabama connection that helped, but she also was just very very like open and honest as a professor. Like she, being someone who worked in like the psychological field and then who then taught a class about it, like she was very open and honest about like her mistakes when she was kind of coming up in the world of psychology as a, you know, like a PhD student and things like that. And I think that was always, you know, so funny. Like she kind of made herself the brunt of the joke, or you know, showed through example, and sometimes those were bad examples, and she would make that known. But I think she's been someone who's been such a great professor for me. And I'm taking one of her classes, her sports psychology class this semester. It's a class that I've waited to take since I first had her, because I knew I wanted to take it again, or have her as a professor again. And she's also, I will say this, and I should definitely mention this, is she is such a great just like role model for also just what it looks like to be a Christian and on faculty. And the very first day of class, she was talking about like her favorite books, and she put up on the screen and all told us that like her favorite book at that moment was The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry by John Mark Comer. And like, just like from that moment, I was like, oh yeah, like she's cool. And like she, like this is a faculty member. This is someone who I can have like a real conversation with, and who like gets it almost. So she's been great. And then also I've had a great professor in my, who teaches my advertising creative in the Husband School this semester, and his name's Josh Carlton, and he's been super fun. And I want to say that this is like one of his first, I think this is his first semester teaching at Carolina, actually, but he has a lot of experience in the marketing world. And I think for the way like this class works, it's, you know, it focuses a lot on kind of, you know, being creative and kind of like a lot of times that takes, you know, and pulling it out of people, you know, like think about things in a way you've never thought about them, or you know, really like lean into this. And I think he does a really good job of that. And he's really inspired me to like look at my creativity differently, but also like how can I like practice that muscle? Like how can I practice that in my everyday life? And so I think he's been someone who has encouraged me, and a lot of ways, like how can I be creative inside of class, but like outside of class in the everyday world, and not just being creative, but how can I like better observe the world around me and like look at the world in a way that's like inspiring, and not just, you know, like he encourages us a lot to like, whenever we have projects where we have to kind of come up with ideas, he's like, you know, if you're creating an ad for the world to see, like, why would you go anywhere else but the world to get like inspiration? So that's been one of my favorite classes that I've taken this semester, and he's been like just such a great encourager in that. So, yeah.
I think I have one final question. What is something that you wish you had known earlier? Like maybe you would tell yourself younger, or you learned the hard way, or just something you wish you knew.
Yeah. Oh man, I was talking about this with someone earlier, actually. But one thing that I wish I could like tell myself earlier on in college was like, you don't have to have everything figured out, and you don't have to know everything, because no one else around you does. No one knows what's going on. Like, I think coming to a school like UNC, it's like so much of what we want our peers to see is like our best self, whether that is like in class, or like in, you know, athletics, or even like our faith journeys and everything like that. I think we are encouraged to show our best selves and act like we have it all together. And I think some of the biggest breakthroughs, not only just like in my friendships, but in my academic like journey, have just been when I've like realized like, oh, like people around me are struggling as well. And I think that has been like such an important thing that I've had to learn, and something I wish I would have learned sooner. Because I feel like you hear people all the time like say that, like, oh, you don't have to have it all figured out. But you're like, okay, I get that, but like, I would love to see like other people like expressing that. You know, I would love to see how other people experience that and then like live that through. And the truth is like everyone's doing that. And it might not always be like the first thing that comes up into conversation, or, you know, like when you ask someone how their day's going or how their studying's going, like they're probably not going to be like, oh yeah, like this stinks. I don't know what I'm doing at all. Like I need help in this, blah, blah, blah. But like if you give it some time and like, you know, really like develop those intentional conversations, like that's when those things start to come out. And it's like, I feel like that was a huge breakthrough, like I said, was just realizing like, oh, I don't have to know everything. I don't have to know like everything about my future and my plan. Like you just kind of like take it one day at a time, and like, you know, you give it your best effort, and you know, a lot of times that looks different from person to person, and that's okay, because that's like how we're created. You know, we're not created to all do the same thing and to look the same way and to you know, give the same results, but instead we're made to, you know, each carry different things, and provide different things for the kingdom. So I think that was a huge thing, was just like, you don't have to have it all figured out, because no one around you has it all figured out either.
Brief follow-up to this, and this is the last question.
Yeah.
How did you learn that? Like, how was it? You mentioned the vulnerability of like,
Yeah.
especially like moving into these, and learning to be vulnerable in those friendships. Like,
Yeah.
how did you finally come to the
Yeah.
place where it was like, oh, everybody else doesn't have to get it?
Yeah. So I think there's been a couple different ways that this is like, I think, been revealed to me, but I think one of the biggest ones was a conversation that I had at Jordan Lake, of all places. We had gone out there, it was kind of late, and it was kind of a smaller group of us, and we like built a fire and we were just hanging out. And we had no intention for it to be like this, like really special like time, but we were just like wanting to just hang out and do something. So that's what we did. And for the sake of like, I'm not gonna like tell someone else's story, but I was having a conversation with a really good friend, and it kind of just got to this point where we're talking about just like what we were going through, what we were thinking, and it was like we literally at that moment like we were dealing with this same exact thing, and kind of learned like how both of us were handling it, and it wasn't well. And I think that was a huge like moment for me of like just having that conversation, being willing to like talk about it and open up about it, like then allowed someone else to also like be honest about it. And it came to the point where we're like, oh, like we're going through the same thing here, yet neither of us are like usually willing to admit that. And so I think that's been a huge thing for me. Like that conversation, like was obviously, I felt like was a domino effect. And like after that, I kind of started to see like just by really digging into like, you know, like I said, like being open and honest first, and allowing other people to be the same, I think is huge. But also just kind of when you develop like these deep relationships with the people around you, and you kind of like I said, are like honest about, hey, like I don't know what I'm doing with my life. Like I don't know, like I'm having a hard time with this, or like I really don't know what's going on in this area of my life. Like a lot of times that just breeds the kind of intentionality and the kind of vulnerability that then, you know, other people take, and you're like, hey, that's like exactly what I'm dealing with. And like you're not alone in that, and like we're not alone in this world. Like obviously the Lord created us for community and created us to be a part of something larger than ourselves. Not just to like have fun and you know, experience the world differently, but to also be comforted by that and to find peace and peace that comes from the Lord in that as well. Yeah.
Okay, last question. I promise. What are you doing post-grad? You can answer this.
I'm moving to Jacksonville, Florida, and I'm working for a company called Restaurant Brands International. It's a restaurant company that owns like Burger King, Popeyes, Firehouse Subs, and I'm super excited because I'm getting to work in the restaurant industry and in and around food, and so I'm super excited. Yeah.